Alright, you guys, so today we are going to be doing a frequently asked questions for new homeschoolers. I'm seeing a lot of questions from people who are considering homeschooling for next year or who are already sold on the idea and they're like, oh my gosh, where do I start? So I thought I would do a video to help all of you newbies out. I do have a video on like just getting started that I will link down below in the description bar. But even if you are a seasoned homeschooler, stick around for the video. Leave your tips and tricks down below. Let's help each other out. And sometimes it can feel very overwhelming when you're brand new to anything, whether that's homeschooling or a new job or a new baby or just a change in life. But it does not always have to be overwhelming, even if it feels overwhelming. So hopefully I will be answering all of your questions in this video. If you happen to have any that I do not cover, please do not hesitate to ask them down below, and I will do my best to answer them, and hopefully some others will as well. So the first question that, you see when people are first getting started is, how do I start? Now, like I mentioned, I do have a video on just like getting started. I will link it up here as well. But basically what you want to do is check your homeschool laws for your particular state, because they're going to be different for each and every state that you can come across. So I recommend going to the HSDLA website. Some people, depending on the state that they're in, they do say that HSDLA is not always up to date. So that is when I would cross-reference with your state homeschool organization's website and just see, how well they blend together regarding the information. And if there's anything up in the air, I would just seek further counsel through your state homeschool organization, just so they can guide you in whatever particular laws. Now, like I said, not all state laws are the same. Some states, like Texas, they are amazing and just super lenient, and okay, you go homeschool your kid and that's basically all you need to do, except also teach like 4 different subjects. But they don't want you to check in with them. They don't want you to turn in any medical records or grades or tests or anything. And then there's other states that are very strict. You have to jump through a whole bunch of hoops and whatnot. So make sure that you know the laws for your individual state and that you check them every single year in case anything changes. New laws are always rolling out into place, and sometimes those benefit homeschoolers and other times they do not. So it is always good to check it every single year just to see if anything has changed and if you have any new requirements. Question number 2 is, how do I choose a curriculum? This can be such an overwhelming feeling when you're sitting down and you're researching, or you're even asking in some of the homeschool groups, what's your guys' favorite curriculum? But just because it's somebody's favorite curriculum, or even 10 people's favorite curriculum, does not mean that it's going to be a curriculum that works for you. So this is where I would recommend going to a website that I'll link below. And there's multiple websites like this one where they go over quite a few of the homeschool theories. They'll give you an overview of what each theory is, what it's about, but this particular website will give you pros and cons to each theory. And when we started homeschooling, I used this website, and it was so helpful to just break everything down, because when you're brand new to homeschooling and you've never heard of these phrases before, you're like, what's classical education, and what's Charlotte Mason, and what do unschoolers do? And so it is so helpful to have something in front of you that just breaks down each and every single one, and it just makes your choice a little easier. And then when you know what theory you fall into, it significantly decreases all of the curriculum choices that are in front of you, because then, say you're like us and you do Charlotte Mason, then you can just start searching for Charlotte Mason homeschool curriculums, and it kind of just takes all of the guesswork out of everything, and it just makes your choice so much easier. And sometimes you might pick a curriculum from whatever theory you fall into, and it might not work, but that doesn't mean that that's not the theory that is really going to work for your family. It just means that that one particular curriculum didn't work. So I would also say that when you're choosing a curriculum, do as much research as you can. Come onto YouTube and look for flip throughs of that curriculum. Go to a homeschool convention, because they usually have a vendor hall, and if the curriculum that you've been looking at happens to be there, if that company is there, then you can actually see the products in front of you. And this is also when it's a great idea to start joining local homeschool Facebook groups that are in your area, because homeschool moms are so helpful, you guys. So you could always say, I'm kind of debating between, say, Master Books and The Good and the Beautiful. Does anybody have these curriculums that I can look through? And then, you might be able to meet up with them and physically see these things and see if, one, it's going to be easy to teach, or if you're going to have to put in a lot of work, in the background to prep that curriculum for that week, or if it's going to be easy, open and go, and just all the things like that. I hope that answers that question. All right, question number 3, how do I socialize my kids? This is actually, as you homeschool, you are going to find out that this is probably like the least of your worries regarding homeschooling. We actually socialize so much that I'm tired by the end of the week and I just want to break from peopling. But you can socialize your kids in so many ways. There are church events, there are sports that you can add your kids to, there are extracurriculars like karate, jiu-jitsu, martial arts, dance, music classes. There are things like homeschool co-ops where you get together with other homeschoolers, and it can either be a social co-op where you go maybe to a park or on field trips with one another, and you just get to build friendships through fun activities. There are co-ops where your kids are going to a place every single week and learning a certain subject or multiple subjects together. There's just many different ways for homeschoolers to meet other homeschoolers and to socialize. And then, there's also neighborhood kids, people at the park. There are so many different ways to socialize your kids. So I promise that if you're actively searching for ways, you're not going to fall short. Now, I will say that depending on the area that you live in, maybe there's not a lot of homeschoolers, in which you might have to get a little bit creative. You might have to start your own playdate group or co-op group. That is always an option. And one thing that I have found is that if you have a need, then there are very high chances that somebody else has the same type of need. So you might just have to step out of your comfort zone and lead something. Question number 4 is, what are my options for a free curriculum? Now, I have multiple options. However, I have only used one of these, so I can't speak to the caliber and greatness of all of them. But the first one, and the one that we have actually used, is the Good and the Beautiful PDFs. Now, if you go to the Good and the Beautiful's website, you can purchase their physical books and workbooks, or you can sign up on their website and receive the PDFs for the grade that you need for free. And that is such a blessing. And all you have to do is print it out or figure out how to just use it digitally. The next ones are Easy Peasy Online, Ambleside Online. You can piece together your own curriculum by going to the library and figuring things out there, which is not always bad. I have actually created quite a few of our own unit studies, and it has been such a fun process for me, but also for my kids, and it has made learning really, really fun. The last one would be Khan Academy. I do know that, and that's KHAN. They do have a YouTube channel. I think they have a app for kids, but I'm not sure which one is free, so you would have to research that, but that is a free option. Number 5, is it possible to afford homeschooling on one income? How expensive is it? Now, this is going to be different for everybody, because homeschooling is as expensive or as cheap as you decide to make it. So and then there's going to be a lot of different factors here. There's going to be what works for your kid regarding learning style, what works for you regarding teaching style, what type of curriculum you choose to go with. If you go with a literature-based curriculum, that's going to be a lot more because there's going to be a lot of books involved. But that's also a really fun one to go through, which is one of the ones that we use, and we just love it. But homeschooling is totally affordable on one curriculum. You might have to make some sacrifices. You might have to, give up certain things or find ways to side hustles and things like that. But we have been homeschooling for the last 3 years on one income. I will say that following Dave Ramsey's plan works wonders. It has put us into such a good position where I don't have to work, and we budget consistently, so that allows us to be able to afford for me to stay home and us to homeschool our kids. But like I said, homeschooling is going to be as expensive as you make it or as inexpensive as you make it. You might have to do a little extra work in different areas to make it cheaper, but you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars every single month on homeschooling. Question number 6. It's the middle of the school year. Should I wait until next school year to start? No, not necessarily. I think this is really going to depend on the situation. So if you just decided to homeschool and you're feeling completely overwhelmed and like it's the blind leading the blind and you don't have all your ducks in a row and the thought of starting right this minute just stresses you out until no end, then take this time and let your child finish out the school year and prepare. Do your research, start getting your heart and mind ready to teach and to take on that responsibility and that blessing. But if the school is not a safe place for your child, if they're being bullied, if they're just hating learning because of how the school is going about it, or anything else that is just detrimental to your child and their mental health, then pull them out. Pull them out right now. Now, there's so many options. If you take this route, you can choose to deschool them for the rest of the year, where you just kind of take a few months off and you just mentally prepare for homeschooling, but you also let them just decompress from the rigors and the craziness that sometimes is public school. Or you can get one of those all-in-one curriculums. DK has some learning books specifically for each grade that will cover math, language arts, grammar, writing, reading, science, history, all of those things. And you can have them work through a book like that. And then if you're doing that, you can also see kind of how they learn best. Do they learn best through reading things, auditory? Are they visual learners and things like that? And that might help you later on narrow down what your curriculum choices could be. Or you could purchase a curriculum and then just start at the beginning of it and just work your way until it's over. Or even just choose to start in the middle of it and work your way through it. So there's so many different options. There's no perfect option. There's just the right option for you. Homeschooling, like I said, however homeschooling is as expensive or cheap as you make it, it's also as stressful or not stressful as you make it. So while this seems like a huge decision, because it is a big decision, it does not have to be this weigh you down and make you just completely stressed decision. You shouldn't start homeschooling like that. Homeschooling is such a blessing. You are going to find so many blessings in it through not just the beginning, but throughout the years. I'm constantly seeing new things that make me so grateful that we homeschool, and I get to see my kids' hearts be just so kind and just they're constantly growing. So it doesn't have to be as stressful as you might be feeling right now. Question number 7, I don't have a college education. Can I still homeschool? So this is going to tie into the first question with how do I start, where I said you need to look at your homeschool laws, because you might be in a state that does require a college degree in order to homeschool. I'm going to go out on a limb here and venture to say that most states don't require this, but check your laws, because this is where you're going to find the answer to that question. They're all different. But even if you don't have a college degree and you choose to homeschool and you're in a state that doesn't require you to have one, you don't need one. to be able to homeschool your kids. So take heart. If you're starting to feel a lack of confidence because based solely on your education level, then just throw that thought out of your mind right now. There is no reason you need to have a college degree, unless the law says, for your state, because you're going to be learning right alongside your kids. So you don't have to know everything. There's no way you're going to know everything. There's no way that even someone with a master's degree is going to be able to teach their kids every single thing before they graduate. So all you need is a can-do attitude and, a willingness to say, do you know what, I don't know, but we're going to look it up and we're going to find out together. Number 8, I'm not good at math. Can I still homeschool? Yes, because like I just said, you're going to learn right alongside your child. So what? You're not good at math. I'm not good at history. If you give me a battle and ask me what war was that in, I would be like, I don't know. Let me Google it because I don't know. But you can still homeschool whether you're good at math or not good at math, language arts, not good at language arts, science, whatever, because there are so many options as a homeschooler. You can learn right alongside your child. If you have it in your time and your budget and your means, you could even choose to take some classes at a community college so you can grow in that subject and then feel more confident in teaching them. You can outsource it. Maybe you know another homeschool mom who is super great at math and you're amazing at science. So maybe she can take over math lessons for your children and hers, and you can take over a science lesson for your children and hers. So you can do kind of like a swap, so to say. Or you can outsource it to, there are so many websites. Their names are currently escaping me, but there is one called OutSchool, and they have classes where you can either do like a one-time class, or you can do classes going for like a span of like 6 weeks or 8 weeks, or even classes spanning the entire year. Or you can even utilize some of the curriculums that do online classes for a particular subject where you're not, necessarily good at, and they can teach your child through video and even maybe meeting with a teacher depending on the curriculum that you choose. So no, take heart, you do not have to be good in every single subject in order to teach every single subject. You just, like I said, you have to have a willingness and a can-do attitude. As long as you have that, you're gonna be golden. Question number 9, how can I get my husband on board with homeschooling? You guys, sometimes husbands can be tricky here, right? But not all the time. Sometimes husbands are the ones who say like, hey, I want to homeschool, and then us moms need a little bit of coaxing. But I think that there's no surefire way to do this. However, my advice is, because when I decided that I wanted to start homeschooling, my husband decided that he did not. And so it took a lot of conversations, and it took a lot of heart-to-hearts, and it took prayer, you guys. Like, I was praying that my husband would be guided to homeschooling the way that I was. And by the grace of God, God put someone in my husband's life, a man who my husband really deeply respected and who just so happened to be a homeschool dad. And so when I started sharing my feelings with my husband on why I wanted to homeschool, why it was important to me, how I thought it could benefit the kids, he was able to take his questions, because I just knew I wanted to, and I had been researching it, but I didn't have all of the answers. So when my husband would ask me certain questions, I was like, I don't know. I just know that this is important to me. And so he was able to take his questions to a seasoned homeschool dad. So I actually ended up doing a whole video with my husband and how he was initially hesitant to homeschool, and I will link it up here in case you want to see it. I think that if your husband happens to be hesitant with, the idea of homeschooling, maybe share the video with him. There's quite a few other videos on YouTube of, homeschool families sharing what brought them to homeschooling and dad's input on it. So I think that that's a great resource. But I think just having conversations with your husband on why it's important to you, and praying that his heart would be guided in the same direction that yours is. And also go out on a limb and join some of your local Facebook homeschooling groups if you're on Facebook, and see if there are any homeschool moms that, want to be your new best friend, but whose husbands are active in their homeschool life and sold on the idea of homeschooling, and maybe they could act as a mentor to your husband. But yeah, just take the time and make sure that you're both on the same page. I would not recommend just, one day pulling the kids and then telling your husband like, hey, guess what happened today? That would be terrible. Make sure that you're on the same page and that you're a united front, because there are going to be hard days. And when you're having a hard day, he's going to need to lift you up and remind you that, whether they were in public school or homeschool, there's going to be challenging moments. And he's going to need to be your voice of reason sometimes. So make sure that you're on the same page. Number 10, what do I say to my friends and family who don't agree with my decision to homeschool? I'm losing my words. Nothing. Don't say anything to them. Your decision to homeschool is just that. It's your decision. It's not their decision. Would it be nice if you had their support? Yes, but it is not their decision. So if you, talk to them and you share your reasons why you decided, and they still just don't get it, or they're mean about it, or they're trying to turn your kids against it, then make it a very firm boundary that they don't get to talk to you or your children about homeschooling. And if they don't respect that boundary, then maybe it's time to lay some stricter boundaries about the time that you spend with them or the time that your children spend alone with them. I don't say those things lightly, but they're I've heard terrible things that families have said to not the mother, but to their child. And that's inappropriate. That should not happen. And even if you're not good at setting boundaries, this is where I do think that you should go into mama bear mode and make a very fine boundary of, if you don't have something nice to say, if you're not going to contribute in a positive way, then we're not going to talk about this. And there's nothing wrong with laying those boundaries. Like I said, it's nice if they're supportive, but we don't always have to agree with each other in, the things that we do and the decisions that we make. And so while their support would be amazing, you don't need it to have a successful homeschooling journey. And you know what is right for your children, and God gave your children to you and not to them. So you know what is right for your kids. So stand firm in that. Question 11, will my child be able to join the military or go to college? Yes, 100%. If you are new here, I have 4 children, a 2-year-old, 6-year-old, 9-year-old, and 19-year-old. And in my 19-year-old's final year of so we had previously gone to public school, and she went to public school basically all of her life. And so her senior year, we actually ended up pulling her upon her request, just because of how crazy the restrictions were, and it was actually doing her more harm than good. So we pulled her, and I made her a transcript for the classes that she did with me. I gave her grades, and she's taking college classes right now. Your child can 100% go into the military or a college. Now, depending on the college that your child would want to go into or go to, I do recommend contacting them and seeing what class requirements they have, if any, but it's not a problem. Because my daughter had done most of her high school, journey with a public school, she already had a large amount of her classes completed. And so she ended up doing a science with me. She did financial literacy, and I can't think of the last one, but I basically had looked up our state standards for graduation, and I just kind of followed that. That does not mean that you have to do that in order to graduate your child. The 2 states that we have lived in while homeschooling have actually had it in their law that homeschool graduation is left up to the parent. So whenever you deem that graduation for your child is, fulfilled, then you can graduate them. You can order a diploma online, and there are even transcript services that you can use online. My friend who previously homeschooled her kids throughout graduation, she gave me the template that she had for creating the transcripts, so I had used that, so I didn't need to use one of the online services, but those are available if you choose to use one. One last little tidbit that I do want to add to that is the way that I personally look at it, and you don't have to see it this way, you don't even have to take this advice, just the way that I see it from my own experience is that I would, even if you don't have to follow your state standards for high school graduation, I'm personally going to, just because even if my child doesn't want to, any of my kids want to go to college once they graduate, I still want to make it as easy as possible for them if they later on choose to go to college. Because when I was going through high school, I didn't want to go to college. I did not want to continue to take classes and learn, and public school really killed the love of learning that I had. And it wasn't until college that I learned, oh, I actually am smart and I do love learning, and oh, I can do the hard things. So maybe your child is like, I don't want anything to do with college. I would, maybe they're like me. And maybe they go to college later on, after it's been a few years, once they're out of high school. I'm personally taking the approach where we will follow state standards, and this is probably the only time I will follow state standards on anything, just because I do want to make it as easy as possible for them, that even if they don't want to go to college right now, if they decide to go to college 2, 3, 5, 10 years later, they have whatever requirements that they're going to need in their transcripts for, easy acceptance into whatever college they may or may not decide to go into. So that's just my personal recommendation. You don't have to take it. You can do whatever you want. That's just what I'm going to do. Okay, the last question number 12. I am scared of failing my child, and I am not sure if homeschooling is the right thing to do. I'm going to tell you to take a moment to think about why you're here. Why are you researching homeschooling? When was that moment that little voice whispered in your head, you should look into homeschooling? Because there is a reason for it. And if the only reason, the only thing that is holding you back from homeschooling your child is a fear of failing them, let me tell you, as a mother of 4, with my oldest being 19, you are going to fail your children. Your parents probably failed you. Your spouse probably fails you. Not all the time, but on occasion. None of us are perfect. There are going to be moments where we fail our children, but it doesn't matter that we fail them. It matters what we do after the failure. Do we leave it as a oops? Or are we going to recognize our failure? Are we going to do something positive about it? Are we going to learn from it so that we don't continue to repeat it? And are we going to help them where we fail? And are we going to acknowledge that we failed? So then that way our kids learn, hey, we're not perfect. We mess up, we fail, we let people down, but it's what we do after those things that matters. So you're going to fail them. There are going to be times where you might lose your patience, you might yell at them, you might get frustrated when you've taught your kindergartner all year long what sound the letter K makes, and they start saying that it's a P sound. You might want to bang your head against the wall sometimes, but homeschooling is such a blessing. It is such a blessing. It's going to give you so much time with your children to watch them grow and to instill good character traits in them and to give them a love of learning and to give them time to explore the interests that they have, so then their minds can grow and their love of learning can grow and their love of different interests can grow. So you are going to give them this amazing environment where they can learn early on that they can do the hard things and that they can learn the things that they're interested in, and that there's no barriers to learning. So you're gonna fail them, but you're gonna succeed more times than you fail, as long as you're consistently trying and you're meeting them where you're at and where they're at. So one of my favorite things to say to anybody who's like, oh my gosh, what if I fail my kids, with homeschooling is if God has called you to it, he's going to equip you for it. That doesn't mean that the minute you decide, okay, we're doing this, I'm pulling the kids out on Monday and we're going to homeschool, that instantly like this magical wand waves around and you're just automatically equipped for anything that comes to you. No, homeschooling, like it's such a crazy, beautiful, messy thing that you get to do every single day with your kids. And I am constantly growing and I'm constantly learning and I'm constantly messing up and learning from my mess ups. But it is amazing. And if you give it a chance, then you'll see all of the fruitfulness from it and all of the beauty in it. And the last thing that I'm going to say on this question is you're never going to know unless you take the initial steps to do. So you're never going to know how, it's going to turn out until you actually do it. So while you might be sitting there thinking, oh, what if I fail them? What if you don't? What if it's this amazing thing that you get to look back on when you're old and gray and you're like, man, I got so much time with them and they are such good people and I got to watch them and cheer them on and coach them through their struggles, and we've had a beautiful life because of it. So that's I'll leave it there. So if you have any questions that I did not happen to cover, let me know down below in the comments. If any of this helped you, I hope that you will give me a big thumbs up, hit that red subscribe button, make sure that you hit the bell notification so you're notified whenever I post a new video. Me and some other moms have our curriculum picks coming up in the coming months, as well as how we go about choosing our curriculum for next year, and just lots of great content. So that's it. I will see you guys again later. Bye.